Palestine, a land steeped in history, blood, and memory. It has been known by many names: Canaan, the Holy Land, the Levant, but for millennia it has been home to countless peoples, cultures, and empires. This is not only the story of a conflict, it is the story of civilizations, of the ancient and the modern, of religion, colonization, resistance, and survival. In this video, we present the complete, fact-based history of Palestine. The earliest known inhabitants of the region settled over 10,000 years ago in one of the world's first cities, Jericho. Archaeological evidence places permanent structures in Jericho as early as 10,000 BCE. By the Bronze Age, the region became known as Canaan, inhabited by Semitic peoples, the Canaanites, with extensive city-states and trade links with Egypt and Mesopotamia. By around 1200 BCE, a new group, the Philistines, settled along the southern coast. They likely originated from the Aegean and established cities like Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ashdod. The name Palestine derives from the word Philistia, Latinized by the Romans centuries later. Around the same time, early Israelites emerged in the hill country. These groups eventually formed the Kingdom of Israel in the north and Judah in the south. The biblical narrative speaks of a united kingdom under Saul, David, and Solomon, though archaeological evidence suggests a looser confederation of tribes. The Kingdom of Israel was conquered by Assyria in 722 BCE. Judah fell to the Babylonians in 586 BCE. Thousands of Jews were exiled to Babylon, but many returned after the Persian conquest. In the classical era, Palestine became a crossroads of imperial conquest. Alexander the Great took the region in 332 BCE, ushering in centuries of Hellenistic influence. The Seleucid Empire attempted to suppress Jewish religious practices, leading to the Maccabean Revolt and the establishment of the Hasmonean dynasty. Rome annexed the territory in 63 BCE. Over time, resistance to Roman rule grew, culminating in the Jewish-Roman Wars. In 70 CE, the Romans destroyed the Second Temple. After another major revolt in 135 CE, the Romans renamed the area Syria Palestina, aiming to erase Jewish connections to the land. Byzantine Christians governed the region until the early 7th century. Then, in 638 CE, Arab-Muslim forces led by Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab entered Jerusalem. The city was handed over peacefully, and religious sites like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre were protected. Islam gradually became the dominant faith, but Christians and Jews remained significant minorities under a system of religious tolerance. Under successive Islamic empires, the Umayyads, Abbasids, and Fatimids, Palestine became an important administrative and religious center. The Dome of the Rock. In 1099, Crusaders invaded, massacring Muslim and Jewish residents in Jerusalem. They established the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem, which lasted until Saladin retook the city in 1187. After a series of failed crusades, the region came under Mamluk and then Ottoman control. The Ottoman Empire ruled Palestine from 1517 to 1917. During these 400 years, the region was divided into administrative districts. Life for most peasants revolved around agriculture, taxes, and religious pilgrimage. Cities like Jerusalem, Hebron, Nablus, and Acre grew as cultural centers. The population was overwhelmingly Arab, mostly Muslim, with Christian and Jewish minorities. In the late 19th century, European powers grew interested in the Middle East. At the same time, the rise of nationalism across Europe inspired two separate movements: Arab nationalism and Zionism. The Zionist movement, founded by Theodor Herzl in 1897, sought to establish a Jewish homeland in historic Palestine. Jewish immigration, mostly from Eastern Europe, began to increase. By the early 20th century, tensions between Arabs and Jews had risen significantly. After World War I, Britain captured Palestine from the Ottomans and received a League of Nations mandate to govern the region. In 1917, Britain had issued the Balfour Declaration, supporting a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, a promise that contradicted earlier pledges made to Arab leaders during the war. Violence erupted throughout the 1920s and 1930s, including major uprisings in 1929 and the Arab Revolt from 1936 to 1939, which protested British rule and Jewish immigration. Britain brutally suppressed the revolt, executing hundreds and exiling Palestinian leaders. After World War II and the horrors of the Holocaust, global sympathy for the Zionist cause surged. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan, dividing Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. Jews accepted the plan. Arabs rejected it, viewing it as a colonial imposition that gave away over half the land to a minority population. In 1948, the State of Israel declared independence. Arab armies invaded. In the resulting war, Israel captured more land than the UN plan had allotted. Over 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled in what became known as the Nakba, the catastrophe. More than 400 Palestinian villages were destroyed or depopulated. Palestinians became refugees across the Arab world, many living in camps to this day. In the aftermath of the 1948 war, over 750,000 Palestinians were made refugees, with many forced into exile in neighboring countries like Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. Their homes, lands, and properties were seized under Israeli laws, such as the Absentees Property Law, which transferred ownership of Palestinian property to the Israeli state. Palestinians refer to this mass displacement and loss as the Nakba, the catastrophe, and it has shaped Palestinian identity for generations. From 1948 to 1967, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, was administered by Jordan, while the Gaza Strip came under Egyptian control. During this time, Palestinians in the diaspora remained stateless. Within the new state of Israel, around 150,000 Palestinians who managed to remain were placed under military law until 1966, facing restricted movement, censorship, and land confiscation. In June 1967, Israel launched a preemptive war against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, what became known as the Six-Day War. In the course of just 6 days, Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula and Gaza from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. These areas became known as the occupied Palestinian territories. The capture of East Jerusalem was particularly significant. Israel annexed the city and declared it its eternal, undivided capital, a move unrecognized by the United Nations and most of the international community. UN Security Council Resolution 242 called for Israel to withdraw from the occupied territories, a demand that remains unfulfilled. The occupation marked a major turning point in Palestinian resistance. In 1964, the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, was formed to represent Palestinians internationally and to pursue armed struggle for liberation. After 1967, the PLO gained momentum, with factions such as Fatah and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine leading cross-border attacks and drawing attention to the Palestinian cause worldwide. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Palestinian resistance took many forms: guerrilla attacks, international diplomacy, and cultural assertion. Meanwhile, Israel began constructing settlements in the occupied West Bank and Gaza, in direct violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which prohibits the transfer of an occupier's civilian population into occupied territory. Tensions culminated in December 1987 with the outbreak of the First Intifada, a mass Palestinian uprising involving strikes, boycotts, civil disobedience, and protests. The response from the Israeli military was severe. Over 1,000 Palestinians were killed, and tens of thousands were arrested. The uprising, however, shifted global perceptions. For the first time, many in the West began to see Palestinians as an occupied people, rather than simply as antagonists to Israel. The Intifada also led to the emergence of a new political actor, Hamas. Founded in 1987 as an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas rejected Israel's existence and gained popularity for its social services and uncompromising stance, directly competing with the PLO's secular nationalism. The First Intifada eventually led to international pressure for a political resolution. In 1991, following the Gulf War, the US hosted the Madrid Peace Conference, which brought together Israeli and Palestinian delegations for the first time in public negotiations. Though no breakthroughs occurred, the stage was set for direct talks. In 1993, after secret negotiations in Norway, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO chairman Yasser Arafat signed the Oslo Accords on the White House lawn. The agreement created the Palestinian Authority, PA, a provisional self-governing body tasked with administering parts of the West Bank and Gaza. In return, the PLO recognized Israel and renounced armed struggle. Initially hailed as a breakthrough, Oslo soon faltered. Key issues, Jerusalem, refugees, borders, and settlements, were postponed for later. Meanwhile, Israeli settlement expansion accelerated. In 1995, Rabin was assassinated by an Israeli extremist. His successors were less committed to peace. In 2000, Ariel Sharon's visit to the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound triggered the Second Intifada. This uprising was bloodier than the first. Suicide bombings, Israeli airstrikes, tank invasions, and home demolitions followed. Thousands were killed, mostly Palestinians. Israel Israel reoccupied much of the West Bank and began construction of a massive wall, which Palestinians call the Apartheid Wall, that further cut off communities. In 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza, but maintained control over its borders, airspace, and sea. In 2006, Hamas won elections. After a brief civil conflict, it took full control of Gaza. Israel and Egypt then imposed a blockade. Since 2008, Gaza has endured repeated wars. In 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021, and 2023, killing thousands, displacing many more, and devastating infrastructure. Today, over 700,000 Israeli settlers live in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, in defiance of international law. The settlements divide the West Bank into disconnected zones, surrounded by checkpoints, walls, and bypass roads. The dream of a contiguous Palestinian state has eroded. The Palestinian political landscape remains fractured. Hamas rules Gaza. The Palestinian Authority governs parts of the West Bank, but with limited autonomy and declining legitimacy. Israel maintains security control across the territory. Peace negotiations have stalled for over a decade. International law affirms Palestinians' right to self-determination, and the UN General Assembly has recognized Palestine as a non-member observer state. Yet key issues remain unresolved: the right of return for refugees, the status of Jerusalem, borders, and sovereignty. Most countries support a two-state solution, but Israeli leadership has increasingly rejected it, and the US has shifted closer to unilateral recognition of Israeli claims. Palestinians today live under occupation, siege, or in exile. Their daily lives are shaped by military checkpoints, demolitions, poverty, and separation from their land and each other. And yet, despite this, they continue to resist through protest, diplomacy, art, education, and cultural preservation. The history of Palestine is not just one of dispossession, it is also one of survival. From ancient Canaanites to modern-day refugees, the people of Palestine have endured thousands of years of upheaval. Their story is one of persistence against overwhelming odds, a story that continues to unfold today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more deep dives into the world's incredible histories.